right, now we go to Potong Pasir, right? Well, it became Cham Sitong land constituency in 1984, and for 27 years, right, he was literally ruling the place. He was like God in Potong Pasir until the 2011 election, where he decided to move over to Bishan Topayo GRC, compete, and Lina Cham, his wife, took over in Potong Pasir, and competed against Sito Yipin. Sito Yipin that was his third time round. 2011 was his third time contesting in Potong Pasir, and he won. He won, very small margin, 0.72%, 114 votes. That's it, right? Now, what's interesting is, how did Sito Yipin win? Is it because the Cham factor, the Cham Sitong factor, had been eroded? Is it because people had less faith in his wife compared to him? Or is it because the people wanted more? I mean, it's not even the Cham factor. They just wanted more. They were exposed to more. What do you think was the reason why?
I think Cham is a factor, because if he had remained in Potong Pasir, I'm not sure whether the result would have been this. So he moved. He wanted to do a Lau Tia Kiang, capture a GRC. I mean, a good reason to do that. So I think the Cham was a factor and even Cham handpicked successor, his wife, somehow didn't manage to win the constituency, to keep the constituency with SPP.
Yeah, I don't think voters, found it easy to just transfer their vote from Mr. to Mrs. Cham. I think they do recognize that they are two different persons. Notwithstanding, Mr. Cham anointed Mrs. Cham as his successor, and of course, this comes on the back of Mr. Cham's margins being slowly eroded over the years. So I think the loyalty there, I think there is loyalty to Cham. There's no doubt about that. But it isn't that sort of pathological loyalty, if I can put it that way. That we see in Hougang. For Mr. Lau Tia Kiang.
But wouldn't you agree that people are still stoic about the way they saw the feelings for Cham?
Oh, definitely, right. I mean, they stood by him, for 27 years, and had he remained, as a candidate in Potong Pasir in 2011, it could have been 31 years even.
Yeah.
Right.
But is there? I mean, maybe we're not being fair to Sito. We are saying that the reason why Sito won is because Cham wasn't there. What if Sito won because it was Sito? The Sito factor itself, not the Cham factor, but the Sito factor.
I think, talking about Sito, as you said, he's a dogged personality. Yeah. But that's not the only thing about Sito. He's an extremely nice person. He has shown that he respects Cham Sitong, and people who have met him, even outside Potong Pasir. I've had the chance to meet him a couple of times. You can see he's genuine. Yeah. He's a people's man. So I think we of course we can't take things away from him, but if the point is, if Cham had stayed, would the victory have come about for Sito? I doubt.
That's history. Now let's move forward. Right? This election. Now, Sito in the last 5 years has injected quite a bit of impurity into the system, and definitely it is showing some chemical reaction. Right? The impurity that is introduced into Potong Pasir, which was somewhat bohemian, quiet. Those days I remember we'd say, "Hey, let's go to Potong Pasir." No, literally. I mean, in the 80s, we'd say, "Let's go to Potong Pasir," because the air was cooler. You had people who had lower blood pressure, or at least they acted like
they didn't have the haze there.
They didn't have the haze then, So, but it was that kind of a culture. It was almost a subculture. These are Potong Pasir people, who vote with their heart and so on. But with the impurities injected in the form of NTUC Fair Price has now gone there. They never had a supermarket. Those days they had to go to Nex in Upper Serangoon.
Well, they had a small Sheng Siong as well.
Yeah, but that's small, you know.
yeah.
But many of them actually would travel to Nex. Now they've got a POSB branch, you know. So they've got all these new facilities which they have gotten used to. Are they able to go back to that semi-bohemian lifestyle, chill, you know, the kampung spirit which Lina Chiam is trying to push for? Would that matter that much?
I think it matters, right? So if you look at Sito Ipin, I mean, he hasn't sought to, you know, even as the estate is upgraded, he's been very conscious, you know, and perhaps, you know, has tried in whatever ways possible to keep that Potong Pasir kampung spirit, because I think he recognizes that that's a unique attribute of Potong Pasir, something that residents value, and he knows very well that Chiam, you know, is almost a legend in Potong Pasir, right? So even though you know, he's no longer the MP for Potong Pasir, he knows that residents there still have deep respect, you know, for Mr. Chiam and for what he has done, you know, and for what he stood for, you know, as being, you know, the longest serving opposition MP, which he still is, you know, good in terms of the 27 years. So I think Sito has been very mindful, you know. So he knows that he shouldn't be seen as a usurper.
Yeah.
So he's very careful, you know, that even though there's change, that takes place amid continuity. And I think, as you said, you know, I think once, you know, residents there find that, you know, there are material comforts, you know, which could add to their bohemian life, you know, would they be prepared to give it all up? But I think we shouldn't look at, you know, the Potong Pasir voter as being materialistic. I think there is a sense that...
No, I don't think it is about materialism. I think it's a reality of life. When you don't have something, you don't know there's a chance that you may not know what you're missing. But once you have a taste of it, it's very hard for you to move forward without that. That's
like opposition politics and opposition presence in parliament.
Whatever. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You know, it becomes almost addictive, right? You can't run away from it. But we've talked about Chiam Sitong, we have talked about Sito Ipin. I think we should talk about Mrs. Chiam,
Yes.
Lina Chiam.
Yes, of
Okay,
course.
what's the sense about Lina Chiam over there, Balji?
I'll give you my sense. I don't know what the sense is actually in Potong Pasir. I think she's no comparison to Mr. Chiam. I think that's a first fact. And I think she has to meet. I mean, she has to contest this quite a formidable opponent.
Yeah.
And also, sorry, I just have to go back to Sito Ipin. He's his own man. He has demonstrated that, you know, number of times, when he held his press conference to announce his candidacy. He did it on his own. He didn't want any of the PAP bigwigs, you know, to be around, because he might have thought that, you know, it could spoil my chances. You know? So he could have
spoiled the show.
Spoil the show, you know. So and sometimes these PAP bigwigs, you know, can't stop talking, you know. And then he can't get his point across. So it could be that. So I think Lina Chiam has an extremely tough fight.
Yeah, I mean, she's a sweet lady. I mean, you know, we interacted when I was an MP, and you know, and she an NCMP. But yeah, you know, I think in the end, voters, you know, much as they appreciate that, you know, she is the better half of Mr. Chiam. You know, they're not going to transfer their loyalty, you know, with no questions asked.
In fact, there were questions asked about her performance in Parliament, right? And she came out in defence to say she raised several issues. She even filed an adjournment motion and so on. But somehow people don't get a sense of her ability to perform on the big issues in Parliament. That's a sense that people have. It may not be fair, What's your take?
Yeah, no, I think she's obviously a very keen participant, if I can put it that way, in parliamentary debates and all. But she would never be able to engage, take on the ministers in any sustained way. And I think there were always questions about whether the questions were coming from a party, rather than being driven by her own abilities. So. But she, I think, certainly she is a recognizable face in Potong Pasir. I mean, she walked the ground with Mr. Chiam for 27 years, and so you add the last 4 years, that makes it 31, so she's a known entity. But I think this sort of familiarity, while it works in personal relations, may not work when we talk about elections, where voters are really asking, what is it that an MP can do for me? I mean, yes, you have two lovely personalities, but in the end, I'm not. This is not a popularity contest. It's also about what can be done for me,
doesn't it also show, as my earlier point, about the maturity of the voter, which is that just because she is Mr. Chiam's wife,
an anointed
successor, I'm not going to vote for her if she's, I have to assess her as a person.
Yeah, and
Lina,
on
not
that
as
score,
Mrs. Chiam.
on that score, the fact that Potong Pasir is almost 90% public housing, right, would count, right? In the sense that that means that the municipal and the basic needs, basic interests, like shopping center, all those things actually matter. Public transport, whether there are enough bus stops in that area, all those things actually do matter.
Yeah, so they have tasted, what it means to be a PAP ward, after 27 years, and so they might say, well, is it really worth, continuing the Chiam legacy, particularly when it's no longer Mr. Chiam, that's helming.
And the other thing is, I can actually imagine Sito Yip, looking at his personality, doing what Obama did with Hillary Clinton. Give her a role.
Well, he hasn't over the last 4 years,
He
right?
hasn't, but there's nothing stopping. I mean, I can see that happening in Potong Pasir. I cannot see that happening in any other constituency. I can see that because of the nature of the players. That they can actually come together because their interests are similar. The interests are similar. He also believes in the kampong spirit. He may not call it such, but I can see them actually working together. I don't know. It's
I think
maybe the Bohemian air.
The problem is whether Mrs. Chiam will want to join him. Because she would want to win the election, right?
Yeah.
By joining him, she's already saying I'm finishing.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, Mrs. Chiam is making a concerted effort. I mean, she said that, well, this could be her last general election. So it's one last chance at the Chiam effect or the Chiam legacy. But I'm not sure, that will change how voters might feel about her. I mean, but certainly, Mr. Chiam has been making a very determined effort,
to be present.
Yeah, to campaign for not just Mrs. Chiam, but also the SPP.
But that would have an effect, definitely, but perhaps not enough.
I don't think it's a big effect.
Not that strong. Okay, question.
Can I just come back to your impurities point?
Yeah.
Because
you like it, huh?
I can't resist, saying something about that. No. But I think it will be very unfair to the Potong Pasir residents, that if we look at impurities only injected into the system, I think if it was somebody else, not Sito Yipin, don't want to mention any names. If the guy is a different type of personality,
different character,
I don't think the impurities would matter.
Yeah. I think that's a very important point. So that's the point you made. They're not. We shouldn't make them out to be mercenary or no. But I guess the point is every community, every individual has a natural propensity for the material comforts of life, and they were beginning to experience that. Okay, all right. Question. So, is Sito going to have a pretty good chance of retaining his seat? Eugene.
I would say so, right? I mean, Sito has sort of tried to keep Potong Pasir, the sort of Potong Pasir that residents have come to appreciate, but he has brought the pluses, the amenities, the.
Hello. Yes or no?
Yes, I'm elaborating.
No need to elaborate. Go straight. Yes. I tell you, you lawyers must qualify and all. Just say lah. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
now you see his
now
answer.
now
Unqualified answer.
I'm a journalist, right?
Yeah.
So we are not like lawyers.
Yeah.
So you actually.
So I will say that I think yes, Sito is very likely to be picked again, and I will even go further that his percentage of votes will go up.
Will go up. Okay.
Not by a big margin, but will go up.
I would tend to think the same. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.